John Vassar was a Baptist preacher born in Poughkeepsie, New York in 1813. Though he was born into a family of godly Christian people, John didn't get saved until he was an adult, already married with 2 sons. Then a few years after John was born again, his younger son became ill and died. Soon after that, his older son got sick and died. And following a year of deep grief and mourning for the loss of her boys, John's wife died as well. John battled despair for his great loss very briefly, but his faith overcame his despair, and he gave his life without reserve to serving the Lord. John Vassar became a dedicated personal soul winner with an unmatched burden and zeal for lost souls. Later in life, people would come to call him Uncle John Vassar, but early on, he called himself the Lord's sheepdog. He said, "Jesus is the shepherd. I just round up the sheep." At 37 years of age, John Vassar took a job selling books for the American Tract Society. Though this took him throughout the West, he regularly made his way back to his home area of southeastern New York State. And he used these visits home to make sure all of his childhood friends and neighbors had been saved. One night, John was visiting in the home of a Christian couple who were friends of his family, and he asked them if any of their neighbors were believers. The lady said, "Oh, we haven't even met any of our neighbors." So John asked her, "How long have you lived here?" She replied cheerfully, "We moved in 5 years ago." John said, "You've lived in this town 5 years, and you haven't cared enough to make sure that the people around you know your Savior?" The couple looked at each other, then bowed their heads in shame. "What can we do?" He proceeded to map out a plan of action for taking the gospel to their entire village. Several weeks later, John was back in the area, and he knocked on their door. The wife answered the door and said, "Brother John, this is perfect timing." She welcomed him inside to meet a room full of their neighbors who they had won to Christ. As John Vassar was going house to house, he knocked on the door of a large house and told the woman who answered, "I'm selling books." She informed him that they had a library in their house. John looked up at their impressive home and said, "I'm sure you do. But these are Christian books. Do you know Jesus?" She said proudly, "I'm a member of the church." John told her, "So am I. But I fear that God will not accept our church records. He only counts the names recorded in the Lamb's Book of Life." Before long, the woman was in tears, professing her faith in Jesus Christ. John was walking down a country road one day when he came upon a man driving a team of oxen. John walked beside him, making conversation, and soon they were talking about Jesus. The man confessed, "I've been trying for some time to find my way to the Lord, but I haven't spoken to anyone about it." Before long, the 2 men were kneeling by the side of the road, and the man was praying, receiving Jesus. Shortly after John left that man, he saw a farmer plowing his field. Like Elijah pursuing Elisha, John Vassar made his way across the plowed furrows and asked the man if he knew Jesus. Soon they were both kneeling in the fresh dirt as the man got saved. In another small town, a young pastor was in his study preparing his message for Sunday when John Vassar showed up, introduced himself, and started talking to him about winning the lost. Before this pastor knew it, he was going with his new friend to spread the gospel, though he was reluctant to leave his sermon preparation. As a result of their soul winning that day, 45 new believers were added to that church the next Sunday, and that pastor had to prepare a different message just for them. He credits John Vassar with transforming his view of the ministry. During a particularly harsh winter, a family looked out the window of their house to see a stranger trudging through knee-deep snow to get to their door. The lady of the house called the family together, telling them, "Listen to this man who has traveled through the snow to do us good." Her teenage daughter tried to leave the room, but when she heard John Vassar kneel to pour out his soul in prayer, her heart melted. She was one of 3 members of the family who got saved that day. John Vassar didn't pass anyone whom he did not at least invite to church. As he walked past a man driving a loaded wagon out of his yard, the man informed him that he was a deacon in his church. So John asked, "Is your wife a Christian?" The man hung his head. "Sadly, she is not." So John asked him, "May I go and speak with her?" The deacon said, "Yes, please do." Before long, the deacon was ashamed that a stranger should be more burdened for his wife's soul than he was. He turned the wagon around. But by the time he arrived at his house, his wife was on the front porch, kneeling next to John Vassar, trusting Christ. She went to church with her husband that next Sunday. The book, Uncle John Vassar, The Fight of Faith, is filled with many more testimonies of the life of this spirit-filled soul winner. Christian, don't ever stop rounding up sheep for your shepherd. Stay the course.